guys, how you all doing today? Thank you for being here. Of all places that you could be, I am so glad that you are here with me today. My name is Barb. Welcome to Halfway to Sane, where together we explore real cases with respect, clarity, and curiosity. In a world where truth hides in the shadows, we uncover the stories that refuse to stay buried, and every case deserves to be told. Today's case is about Caleb Harris, and I'm actually not going over the whole case. I'm pretty sure that I did a story on him when this first came out years ago. I am simply doing a very quick overview because June 24th, 2026 marked 2 years since his tragic disappearance and death. He was a Texas A&M University Corpus Christi student, and I am going to start off with the timeline of what happened. So it was on the evening of March 3rd where Caleb and his 2 roommates and a mutual friend of theirs were sitting around and just playing video games for about an hour or so. They had an off-campus apartment together. And at 12:56 a.m. on March 4th, a Ring doorbell camera captured Caleb and the friend and just one of the roommates in the parking lot playing with a small white puppy that I guess belonged to one of the roommates' girlfriends. And about an hour and 20 minutes later at 2:20 a.m., the second roommate had told Caleb that he was going to go to bed. And Caleb said that he was going to stay up and he was going to Uber in some snacks that he could have for the next day while he was in class or at classes. And then at 2:44 a.m., Caleb sent a Snapchat video to his younger sister showing him walking the puppy through the apartment complex parking lot. And shortly thereafter, at 3:03 a.m., Caleb sent a Snapchat photo to a high school friend of his in San Antonio showing a small bridge over a drainage ditch that was near his apartment. And then at 3:12 a.m., Caleb's cell phone shared its last location with the nearest cell tower. And just 8 minutes later at 3:20 a.m., his Uber Eats was delivered to his apartment and it was left at his front door. Now, the morning of March 4th, 7 hours after the Uber Eats delivery, one of Caleb's roommates found the order outside the door, and he had noticed that Caleb's truck was still parked outside. So, being alarmed, I guess they looked for Caleb, couldn't find him, and they contacted police, and Caleb was reported missing. And March 6th, the Corpus Christi Police Department began an investigative search where they were searching ditches, fields, and the brush areas in the immediate areas of the apartment. He was not found at that time. Now, his dad stated that shortly before Caleb's disappearance, he had messaged his dad about his fishing trip that Caleb was planning on having the next day, and he was texting him about different fishing lures and things like that. He also said that Caleb that Friday and Saturday had seen his mom and they had fun with the roommates and some friends and whatnot, and they had gone to the beach and Caleb had showed her some of his favorite areas that he liked to go fishing. And then on May 1st, there was a possible eyewitness that came forward and claimed that he had seen Caleb walking the puppy under a bridge near his apartment that night that he had disappeared. I don't know why he waited so long to come forward, but I don't know. Anyway, on June 4th, police began investigating Caleb's missing phone for activity. Again, I don't know why that took so long. I don't know what the protocol is on all that and how long it takes for paperwork to go through and whatnot. And then on June 24th, unfortunately, human remains were discovered around 3:30 p.m. in a wastewater lift station that was near Caleb's apartment. And then in July, those remains were sent for DNA analysis, and they were later identified as Caleb's. And there was an autopsy report that was released on July 17th. Now, one tip that police received was about an open manhole that was located in a field about 600 feet from where Caleb's last Snapchat video was filmed, which they now believe is how he entered the sewer system in the first place, which totally makes sense to me. However, at the time they received the tip on April 18th, their efforts had turned up no information. When they went to the location to drain the manhole, there was no indication of a body. And when they went to the lift station where his body was eventually found, they also found nothing. And then on June 24th, after a tropical storm Alberto hit, employees at the lift station had notified authorities that a sewage pump alarm had gone off, which indicated that something was jammed in the pipe. And when they opened it, the employees found what appeared to be a human bone, which is now known to be one of Caleb's shoulder bones. So, investigators said that they believe Caleb's body, which had been in the pipe, was pushed into the lift station because of the water accumulation as the result of the storm. Authorities still don't know exactly what happened, saying that it was possible that he was harmed and put there, or that an accidental fall could be to blame. However, they do believe that the open manhole in the field, which measured 25 inches wide and 15 feet deep, was his point of access into the sewer system. Now, they said there are 4 other manholes on the roadway, and they could not rule out that he entered the system in one of those, but that it was much more likely that he entered through the open manhole. It's unclear if there was water in the manhole on the night of his disappearance, and it's also unclear how he entered the manhole, saying that the cover was knocked aside, and most people walking by probably would not have noticed that, saying that it was sort of camouflaged by high grass. And on the night he went missing, it was described as probably one of the foggiest nights they had. So it makes sense to me that if that manhole was open, then and it was foggy and there was tall grass, he had just sent that Snapchat. He was more than likely not paying attention to where he was going. He couldn't see where he was going. It was dark. It was foggy. And I'm thinking he just fell in. That's just my opinion. I'm not a professional. Don't claim to be. But that's kind of what makes sense to me. And his autopsy was released in August, on August 6th, actually. And the manner of death could not be determined with certainty based on the state of decomposition at that time, because he had been in there for quite a while. The autopsy included a toxicology analysis and microscopic examination of the residual organs, which were still there. The examiner said that at the time of Caleb's remains were found, they were in an advanced state of composition and skeletization, and while no significant traumatic injuries were identified, the condition of the remains could have obscured subtle injuries and or additional significant natural disease. The toxicology results were negative, and the exact details leading up to the terminal event and death are currently unclear. Skeletal remains were found almost complete with several bones absent, including the mandible, the clavicles, the right and left ulnas, the sternum, some of the ribs, and most of the foot bones. There were stained clothing, including dark-colored teal pants that had dark-stained red, white, and blue, that they were dark-stained with red, and also white and blue plaid boxers, and a dark baseball cap found covered in mud and dark dirt and plant material. So, I don't know. It just makes sense to me that he fell in, and if there was water in there, he drowned. If there was no water in there, maybe he hit his head and had a head wound, and maybe he just died from exposure after being in there for so long. But his parents, Randy and Becky Harris, have turned to their faith to cope with their grief. And Becky frequently posts on social media sharing how she has found peace. And in one of her writings, she stated, "Our hearts are broken, but we have peace knowing that he is in heaven. We praise God for Caleb's life and will continue sharing our son's story, hoping to share the peace that surpasses all understanding. This has been very hard for all of us, but we have joy knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt Caleb is in heaven, and God will provide the answers we seek in his timing." Now, in the event that something sinister did take place, and there's somebody out there that has information on this, you are encouraged to contact the Corpus Christi Police Department at 361-886-2600 or the Texas Rangers at 361-696-6570. So I'd like to thank you for spending time learning about the case, although briefly, I just did a brief overview. But remember, behind every headline is a real person whose story deserves to be told. And if you enjoyed this and found it informative, then please, if you haven't done so, subscribe, like, and share. It helps me out more than you know. And turn on your notifications so that you are always updated. Put your thoughts down below what you think may have happened to Caleb. Do you think it was something sinister? Do you think it was an accident? Let me know. Also, if you have any further thoughts on any additional stories that you'd like to hear, you can put those down below as well. And until next time, see you later.